right, welcome into the Skol Purple podcast, everybody. Of course, my name is Tony, aka Steggy Stories, aka Still Sad from the Giants game. Super excited to be back here in the off season on the podcast talking Vikings. But today we're going to do something a little bit different. We've got comedian Drew Harrison in here with us back on the podcast.
Check it out.
Appreciate you coming back, Drew. Super excited to have you. How the heck have you been?
I'm doing great, man. Ended 2022 great. Starting 2023 awesome. I'm feeling good, man. Been doing some traveling. I was up near your way, like not quite your way, but I was in Michigan, Grand Rapids a few weekends ago, and I'm not built for that snow. I will tell you that.
Yeah, it's a different deal, man. We just got through quite the snowstorm here.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're quite out of the snowstorm warning or whatever it is, winter storm warning, but I
Yeah.
think it's supposed to end sometime today. But we just got like 2 feet of snow here in the Twin Cities, and
That's just it's just the thing you live with, huh?
I mean, not real. I mean, it's so bad, Drew, that even here they're like, no school. Like, just nope, don't even go
Really?
outside.
Okay.
Like, they don't want
Alright.
anybody out there. That's still a lot of snow for us. So 24 inches is a little bit too much,
Good
as they
God,
like
man.
to say.
Yeah, luckily when I was there, I drove in. We were there one show Thursday, and then we had 2 shows Friday and Saturday. So I was there Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Drove in on Thursday, was great till about 3/4 of the way through Indiana, and then started getting a little dicey. Whenever I'd go
Yeah.
under a bridge, I'd do the little, you know.
Oh yeah.
But I get to
Yeah.
my hotel, I check in, I'm good to go, and while I'm there, it drops like 8-9 inches Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I'm just like, how am I getting home on Sunday? So I had to dig my car out Sunday morning. I waited till like 10-11 to hope that the trucks had made it through the highways. And for the most part, they did. There were some dicey parts getting out of Michigan, but
Yeah.
I made it. And I just hats off to y'all for doing that more than I would want to.
Yeah, there is a benefit, Drew, to the grind, right? Like you got the snow, you've got the cold. See, both you and I grew up in the South, and
Yes.
the crazy people that'll be outside like a 7-Eleven or like a BP at like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
See the snow, we just freeze them all out. Like those people don't
That was
exist.
nice. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
feel scared walking from the club because I mean, I obviously wasn't driving. So I had a little bit of a walk from the club to the hotel every night, and I felt good because I mean, who's gonna try to? That'd be messed up to get robbed in 20-degree weather with snow falling down.
Yeah. Whoever's sticking you up, they'll be like, "All right, can you hurry it up?" I'm like, "I'm really cold."
Right? Like who we play? What do we play? Who can run on snow and ice the best?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and us, as a big guy, I like to just kind of like a penguin, just kind of go
I
face
shuffle.
first.
Yeah.
Yeah, just go belly first.
There you go. Okay.
It's like a luge. It's like a
Yeah.
luge.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Well, I certainly appreciate having you back, Drew.
Yeah, man.
Obviously, it's been a longer off season. I'm not rubbing anything in. This is just the truth.
Hey, I was
Um,
ready for it, man. You know me. We talked last time. I was good with it. We won
and the
more
thing
games than I
is,
wanted to be honest with you.
we're not. We're like a week difference. I mean, the Vikings did not look good against the Giants. Obviously, lost in the wild card round. The Panthers, just like you alluded to, the last time we talked, they were still hanging on. I mean, they still had a chance there at the end. And
Thank God they didn't, though.
yeah, my question, and this is actually kind of a little segue, but actually, I'm not going to segue into it yet because I do want to get some Super Bowl thoughts from you first, if
Okay.
you wouldn't mind. But
Yeah.
I guess maybe I'll hold on to my question until we get past some Super Bowl banter
Okay.
here. But I'm wondering if, as you mentioned, maybe it would have been better for the team had they lost a few more games there
Few more.
towards the end instead of hanging on. And then the other aspect is if they would have maybe been able to, find their way into the playoffs, does that have implications for the head coaching job? So you don't need to give me your answer yet. We'll talk about that as we
Okay.
get in here. But I guess we'll kind of keep on path. What were your thoughts on the Super Bowl? How did you like it? Were you rooting for the Eagles, Chiefs? Where were you at in the Super Bowl?
Oh, my wife is a big Chiefs fan, so we were pro Chiefs over here.
Mm,
So she's a Kansas girl, true and true.
I forgot about
Been
that. You
a
mentioned
Chiefs
that.
fan since birth. Her whole
Yeah,
family, they got candles they light. They got this whole ritual. It's a thing, but
yeah.
it
I think
it
they
was
call it a seance.
yeah, whatever it is, it worked.
Yeah,
So uh, I seeing it through her eyes, seeing get a little worried, especially when they were up at halftime. But I enjoyed the great. It was a great game. That was one of the better Super Bowls we've seen in a while. It went down to the wire. You didn't just a lot of times I'm thinking of like that terrible Broncos Seahawks Super Bowl where it was over by after the first quarter. So it was entertaining. I enjoyed the commercials. I enjoyed the halftime show. Just all around good Super Bowl.
yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. Did you what were your were you pro holding call there? Did you feel like I'll say this. I'll give you my very short take. In the moment, I thought it was a bad call, or I at least thought it was a tick-tacky call. I thought, you got to let them play. Huge spot. It's a little but, the more I was able to digest it and the more I kind of heard the
It was a
analysts,
hold,
yeah,
like
it was what it was. It gets called, and if they saw it, they got to call it. If they don't call it, then you have the reverse problem, right? Where there's
they're
now
getting
a
picked
blatant
apart either
penalty.
way.
Exactly.
So at
But
least go by the letter of the law, and by the letter of the rule, it is a hold, and they
yeah,
called it. I think to err on the side of it that you made the right call. Yes, it does suck to be the deciding factor, but I mean,
yeah,
who knows? What if he would have dropped it?
yeah. You never know how the play would have played out, if you will. Yeah,
Mhm.
and neither team for me. It just I wanted to be honest with you. I wanted Bengals and maybe Niners, or I actually my team was the Bills. I really wanted the Bills to make it further in, but so it was what it was. For me, I was just a football fan watching a Super Bowl. As you mentioned, it was a very entertaining Super Bowl. Um, and as much as it pains me to say this, because as a Vikings fan, we are not too keen on the Eagles. But
That's fair.
good for Jalen Hurts. I think that
Yeah,
one of the takeaways for me was just it hopefully this silences some of the detractors or the doubters, because
yeah, no
I
doubt.
thought Hurts looked good for, I mean, like last year. Last year I said I think this kid's got something. Like I think this kid's talented. I think he's here to stay. I saw enough from him that I really thought they could build a team around him. And then this year, obviously, we saw what happened.
Yeah. Well,
But
I mean, he went toe to toe with the heir apparent best quarterback in the league.
yeah,
What? Hold your head high for sure. Like Jalen Hurts. Hopefully, you don't want him to turn into like an injury story at some point.
yeah.
So I just, you hope he stays healthy. You hope he continues. And I don't want to see the Eagles there every year, but I want Jalen Hurts to shine. So maybe a contract dispute happens and he has to go to another team, and I can actually pull.
Yeah, you never know.
I
Not
mean, the
that
QB carousel that is every year.
I was gonna say, not that the Panthers would have any interest in a new quarterback or anything, but
God, man, I don't know what we're gonna do. I'm just happy we haven't already pulled the trigger on a vet that hadn't worked somewhere.
yeah. Well, and that, to be honest with you, that is one of the talking points I was gonna go through. Kind of a natural segue. I'll just toss it up on the screen then. Obviously, it sounds like, at least right now, that Darnold is the guy in 23. I mean, what do you hope for? It sounds like Derek Carr, there's slim to no chance that he comes to the Panthers, because there was some grumblings, and then there was a report that came out just recently that said, they're not really in the mix. It's probably the
Yeah.
Jets or,
I
whatever.
just don't
So
want him to go to the Saints.
yeah, well, yeah, that
But,
sounds like there's a high probability there. My quick take, by the way, on that is I actually think that Carr will go to the Jets because I think the only other player that the Jets really are eyeing is Rodgers, and I think Rodgers is going to drag his feet too long. They're not going to want to wait, and
yeah.
they're going to sign Carr
What are you talking
because they
about? He
don't have to
came out
wait
of
for a
his
pick.
darkness retreat.
Yeah, he came back. Yeah, I don't know if you heard, we got 6 more weeks of winter. So
Yeah. 6 more weeks of him being undecided on what he's gonna do with his future.
that's right. I don't know, man. I've said since this whole, off season started with Rodgers and the drama, it's just all a bunch of smoke and mirrors for him to end up back in Green Bay. That's
Yeah,
I
I
think
was a very strong advocate that he was gonna leave last year, and boy, did he get me. So, I don't know. I'm keeping my opinion out of I don't know what he's gonna do because he's a crazy person.
yeah. I just think that he's trying to push the team into committing more resources, equity, etc. In either the draft, free agency,
Then take a
and
pay cut.
he's not going to do that. How's he going to pay for all
He
these
can't
retreats?
complain about not having any tools if he's
Yeah.
commanding 50 million a year just to himself.
Well, he's got to keep up that ayahuasca habit.
Well, he's gonna be making Jeopardy money here before too long, so he'll be all right.
This is true. Well, do you hope to see? And I maybe this is a dumb question, but do you hope that they roll with Darnold in 23, or where are you at? You want him to pick up a veteran? If so, do you have any ideas or
No,
preferred
I'm
choices?
good with Darnold. I want him to, kick the tires on Matt Corral. We took him in the 3rd round for a reason. Give him a chance, at least in practice. A full year because he got hurt immediately, so he hadn't done anything. I want to see if Frank Wright can do any kind of magic with him. But yeah, I'm good with Darnold because the options out there I'm okay with. I don't want Jimmy G. I don't want Derek Carr. I don't want any of these quarterbacks in the draft this year. I say we go with Darnold and tank for that May Drake May from OUNC. Keep him a
Oh,
hometown guy.
there you go. Yeah, you don't like any of the quarterbacks coming out of this draft?
I like CJ Stroud, and I think we'd have to give up too much to get him. So I'm good with it.
Yeah,
I don't. I think I'm never that. I've never been that guy. He's too small, but I don't want Bryce Young because I feel like he's going to be hurt every
Mm.
other game because he is too small. I'm sorry. You do have to take a hit. Like, do you see the size of the edge rushers nowadays? Like, come on,
yeah, and they're fast too.
they're
They're big
so
and fast.
fast.
Yeah.
So I'm just afraid he's going to get smacked. And I don't like Levis. I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna. He's got Ryan Leaf written all over him. I'm good.
What do you think of Anthony Richardson? A lot of Vikings fans feel like they want to go into get a little Anthony Richardson action if they can catch him falling in the draft.
I think that's smart for a team like you guys because it seems like you're gonna roll with Kurt for another year or two, right?
Yeah,
So that would be perfect for you, a team like you, because he is. I think out of all the quarterbacks in this draft, he's got the most just natural talent. It's just, is he going to be a long term project or is he going to pick it up?
right. Yeah, yeah. You see flashes, but then you also see moments that are like,
You just get so scared
eh,
of the long term projects. Like, tell me a
yeah.
long term project that worked out.
Hey, thanks for joining us here on the Skull Purple podcast. Of course, brought to you by the Pigskin Podcast Network and our sponsor, DraftKings. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about DraftKings here. The action never ends at DraftKings Sportsbook, especially this summer with tons of ways to bet on all your favorite sports. You can fuel your fandom and feel the heat of the season like never before. Plus, right now, DraftKings Sportsbook is giving new customers a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's right, make your first bet up to $1,000, and if it doesn't win, you'll get another shot to cash in. You can throw down on all the major action for baseball, golf, MMA, and more. Plus, with same game parlays, spreads, money lines, over unders, and props, your betting options feel endless. I personally play a lot of daily fantasy. So now that the NFL season is over, I've shifted my focus to a lot of basketball lineups. So certainly tune in if we want to talk a little bit more about the daily fantasy. But now that we're past the All-Star game, I like to play some 50-50s. I also like to play some of our big tournaments. So cash games and also some of the larger tournaments. So super excited about the second half of the NBA season, and DraftKings is the place to be. Best of all, DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. You can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TPPN. Make your first deposit and get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. Again, that's promo code TPPN, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. Make sure you do see our show notes for details. Again, thanks for watching the show, and let's get back to the action. Yeah. Oh, I agree. And to your point, I mean, we've got Kirk under contract for one more year, and the general, you know, train of thought for most Vikings fans, the consensus is that we're going to probably draft a quarterback. Where in the draft, we don't know. And then, it just depends on how the front office feels about the guy they get. Does he sit behind Kirk for a year and then we kind of move on?
Yeah.
Or do you extend Kirk another year to 2 years? Probably fully guaranteed, because that's how Kirk tends to roll. And, more power to the guy. You might as well, right? That way a team can't cut bait and he understands the leverage he has. So, but I'd be fine with that if they felt that the prospect that we had, was actually something where maybe we only commit, another year or so. So
Because who's your backup? Do you have a project
we
quarterback?
don't, we don't, we've got a guy you may remember, but Nick Mullins, who actually
Oh
started for
God.
San Francisco.
Ugh.
Yeah.
If you've watched any in Nickel and Dime episodes, you know how I feel about Nick Mullen.
Well, we had Sean Mannion, who was absolutely the worst backup I've ever seen
Yeah.
in my
What about
entire
Kellen
life.
Mons? Did y'all cut that guy?
We did cut him, and then he got
Okay.
picked up somewhere, and I think he ended up on a practice squad.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I think what hurt Kellen was, obviously, if he would have had crazy talent, he would still be on the team. But also, I think what hurt
One
Kellen
of those
was,
long-term projects.
well, and he came into a team that was falling apart. With Zimmer, like that whole staff was in shambles. There was a lot of tension because everybody knew they were on thin ice. And then you had COVID. So, and then he got COVID like in training camp. So then he was out. Like,
Oh,
there was all these factors that came into play that just, it wasn't conducive for anybody. And especially a guy that needed to develop. And, Zimmer
it's
hated the
so
pick. So,
it blows my mind how you can say all these quarterbacks are compare them to whatever prospect, this and that, tell them they got this tool and that tool. And I am now more than ever a firm believer in it all matters on what team they go to.
yeah. Yeah.
It like Trevor Lawrence floundered under Urban Meyer. And then you get Doug Peterson in there, and he's fighting with the best of the best in the AFC.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, and I think it's so important to have good coaching around these young guys. And I think that's where like veteran coaching comes in, and veteran coaching that is, I don't want to say necessarily tailored to the position, but at least you've got a really good offensive coordinator if you don't have a good head coach that is an offensive minded coach. Like, you
Yeah,
need somebody on that side of the ball that has done it before, has, coached at a high level and knows how to push these young guys and develop them. Because like you said, we've seen it from inexperienced coaches, and we've also seen it, not to bring it back to the Vikings, but where you've got a guy like Mike Zimmer who really could care less about the offense. He was very defensive minded. The only thing he asked from his offense was basically, don't turn the ball over. That's it. Just don't mess it up. Like, that
yeah.
was that was it. And for a young quarterback, being asked to be perfect is, it's next to impossible.
That's the thing, man. And I was so happy with the way the draft fell last year. And I wish that would become more of the trend. And I know it's going to go right back to the way it was this year. But those quarterbacks didn't go in the top 10 last year.
Yeah.
They went to situations that were actually good for them. And now look, Sam Howell looks like he's set up and he's going to be given every chance to succeed in Washington. Pickett's getting like he got beat up a little bit in Pittsburgh, but they competed. They still were a good team, and I think another year under his belt, he's going to be good to go. I'm trying to think what other poor Willis is going to get eaten
Yeah.
alive in Tennessee. I don't think that's a good situation for him
Yeah.
because he's a good few years away from being NFL ready, and he had to play a decent amount last year. Like they went out and got another quarterback because they're like, this dude ain't cutting
Yeah. Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I agree with you. It would be nice to see guys that have time to develop, and it does seem like the other trend that I've seen is that unlike where Lawrence got lucky in round number 2 with Doug Peterson,
Right.
obviously he didn't get lucky with Urban Meyer,
Yeah.
but a lot of these guys that are thrust into a starting spot right away, they're also thrust into a starting spot with an inexperienced coach
A
or a
no
coach
offensive
that's
line.
bounced around the league a bunch. Um, and actually, I'm going to use that as a little bit of a segue only because, kind of talking about coaches that have been around the league a little bit. Obviously, we had the big signing Frank Reich, the Panthers moving on from Wilkes, who I know you were a big fan of. I know us in the Skull Purple podcast, my cohorts Carson and David, we actually talked about this in a separate podcast, just the three of us, as the coaching changes started to come out this offseason. And all three of us agreed that we were disappointed to see Wilkes go. We're all big fans. And, nothing against Frank Reich, I guess.
I
But
mean, we'll see.
we didn't love it.
Yeah.
As outsiders, we didn't necessarily love the head coaching pick. So I would love to hear from somebody that really is like a true blue fan of the team. How do you feel about the Reich situation and how that's all shaken up?
I feel better about it now that I've had some time to digest it and see the staff he's putting together. I love the staff he's putting together. Although Dom Capers, what was that at that press conference? My guy, spray on hair or something. I don't know what that caught me off guard. But I love the staff he's put together, man. I like Caldwell. I like Deuce Staley. I like the Denver defensive coordinator. I can't think. Every time I go to talk about him, I think I forget his name.
Yeah, I do too.
But I think we got a new offensive coordinator that just needs a chance to shine. I'm excited. I wasn't big on it to begin with because I was happy with Wilkes, but I get it. We needed. I think if anything, we definitely needed an offensive-minded coach going forward because
Yeah.
our defense is young and starting to figure some things out, and our offense is all over the place. So we needed an offensive-minded coach, I feel, and I just lean more towards the offensive head coaches anyway because I just feel like defensive coaches. I've had John Fox. I've had to run the ball up the middle 3 times and punt it and play defense. I don't want that. I don't want to watch that on Sunday.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is too, the league, it's going towards an offensive driven league, right? That's what puts butts in seats is points and offense, offense, offense. So you see, the way that the referees, again, we go back to this issue, but the way the game is reffed,
Yeah,
the way the rules are set up, it's really to support the offensive side of the ball more than the defensive side, in my opinion. Um, and so because of that, like you said, it almost makes sense for teams to be a bit more offensive minded because that's the way the league's going. It's the way the rules are going. So you might as well lean into it. And I think when you go against the grain, especially with guys that are, I'll just say it a little more old school, it feels like they can be good, but they can't last like deep into the playoffs. Like something always happens where you're going to find a team that's so good offensively that they can figure out how to score enough points because usually teams that are crazy good on defense are usually what? Not very good on offense.
right, right.
So then it ends up being like, oh yeah, and then they lost 17-10, or something like
Yeah,
that.
I just want. I lean more towards. I want an exciting football team.
Yeah.
The record will work its way out. Like I would much rather have an exciting team that loses in the fourth quarter than a boring team that gets beat 9-3 every week.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what I think nowadays, what really makes sense is to have an offense that is like a progressive offense that's kind of up to date with today's NFL, and then a defense that's aggressive. It seems like that's the
Bend
recipe.
don't break kind of thing.
Yeah, well, bend but not break, but also willing to blitz and be creative.
Well, I
I
mean,
think
that's what the formula Kansas City followed this year. They're like, we
yeah,
don't have the best defense, but we're just going to throw whatever we got at you, and it works.
exactly. It's just to make the offense feel uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I mean that was not that you weren't going to ask, Drew, but I'm just going to offer. I'm going to offer it up to you unsolicited. Um, as Vikings fans, we are really excited about the new addition to our staff, Brian Flores.
yeah,
Us bringing Brian Flores on
it's
because I
huge.
can tell you, our defense was horrible this
Yeah,
last year. I mean, that was the Achilles heel of the Minnesota Vikings
and
in
look how far you
2022.
got. You
Right?
know,
Yeah, yeah,
teams with bad
exactly.
defenses but decent offenses get way farther than teams with bad offenses and good defense.
Oh, exactly. And it's one of those things where I didn't expect a lot out of the defense, but my gosh, if it's 3rd and 4, let's not play 10 yards off the ball. Like, I mean, come on, you got to get up there and press. I get that, you're worried about leaving these guys hung out to dry, but I'll be honest with you, they're leaving themselves hung out to dry because they're terrible. So it doesn't really matter where you put them. You might as well blitz them. Um,
Y'all might be due for what the Panthers did a couple years ago in the draft and go straight defense every pick.
I would be fine with it. I've
Yeah,
been advocating for pretty much that on here on the podcast. I think we went through last week or our last episode. We talked about the needs, needs of the team. What's number one? And I was like, man, linebacker and corner. You pick one. That's 1A, 1B. But we'll see what happens. Obviously, lots of excitement heading into April. We're definitely not a one player away team, but I don't know. I think the Vikings are going to regress this next year
yeah.
because we're playing a first place schedule. It's ugly. Like our schedule is going to look nasty, and but you never know, man. I thought the Vikings. I didn't think they were going to be 13-4 this
Right,
last year. So,
right.
well, I guess, and that's kind of a nice little segue into our last segment here, Drew. What do you want to see from the Panthers in 2023? What are you looking forward to? I know we talked about the coaching changes, but what are you looking for them in the draft? And where do you kind of see them in 2023, or where would you want them to kind of focus?
I really want them, to start implementing, Frank's way, get his coaches in here, see what players we got that fits in with what he sees the future. And I think 2023 is going to be a filling out year. We still are not going to figure out long term quarterback situations. So in the draft, I just want us to get the best players possible. I would love them to go in with not even with a game plan, just best player at that spot, get it. So I just want them to beef up the roster, see what Frank wants to do going forward, get his coordinators in, get their philosophy in there, and just kind of see what this identity of this team's going to be, and just kind of get a sense of what. Because I mean, under Matt Rule, it was chaos. So just
Yeah.
if Frank can just show us a little bit of I got this, I think it will go a long way.
Yeah.
So
So what
just
you're
be
telling me,
competitive. Or, if it starts falling apart, tank, get a high draft pick, get that quarterback. Because next year's quarterback class is going to be pretty crazy. I feel like Caleb Williams from USC, Drake May. I think it should be interesting.
Drew, is that Panthers are Super Bowl bound
No,
2023.
no, 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 no. I mean, that Frank Wright would be legend status if he pulled that off.
Yeah, yeah, he probably have to build a statue out of bronze.
It would go up for like immediately.
Yeah, put one in your house, maybe.
Yeah,
Well, Drew, that's all I really had for you in this episode.
awesome,
Again,
man.
Thank you for being a friend of the podcast.
Of
I don't think
course.
I mentioned this earlier, by the way, but again, Skull Purple Podcast presented to you by the Pigskin Network. So we are certainly happy to be a part of the network. Did want to throw them out a shout out here on the episode. Drew, before we cut away and end today's episode, I do want to pitch it back over to you. Where everybody find your amazing content, and do you have any tour dates coming up? Where are you going to be at?
Yeah, man. Check me out. Instagram's probably my favorite social media. At Laugh with Harrison. You can always check out drewharrisoncomedy.com. Got all links to everything. I got the special out on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you want to listen to it, called Based on a Drew Story. So make sure you go check that out. Uh, I've got some great dates coming up, man. I'll be in Nashville the first part of March. Got a run in North Carolina in the middle of March, and then also again at the end of March. Be at Bay Harbor, Michigan with Dusty Slay on March 25th. Make sure you get tickets for that. Be in Indianapolis March 26th at the Sunday Show. Be at Dead Crow Comedy Club in Wilmington, North Carolina, March 31st and April 1st. So yeah, just check out all the dates and more. Drew Harrison Comedy.
.com. Definitely go check it out. Drew is very, very funny. Love the special. I've listened to it. My wife has listened to it. We all love it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
So very, very good stuff. Appreciate you coming on the show. And of
Yeah,
course I
yeah.
appreciate having
Well,
you
thank you for having me.
here. We just like to spread love. That's what I'm all
Yeah,
about. Just
yeah,
getting
yeah.
a little choked up about it here, Drew.
There we go.
No, we really appreciate having you on. You're always welcome back on the podcast. For everybody that's watching or listening, again, you can catch us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you catch your podcasts. Like and subscribe. It definitely helps the channel if you are on YouTube. And if you're on one of the other platforms like Apple and Spotify, leave us a comment, leave us a rating. We love to see your comments, and we actually like responding to them. We just came out with a video responding to one of your comments on YouTube, so go check that out about a prospect or draft prospect somebody threw in the comments. So thanks again, Drew. Appreciate your time. As always, Skol Vikes, and we will catch you guys on the next one.